I want to welcome you back too, and thank you so much for joining us here on America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys formula and America's Medicare Associates with Nolan Baker and Chaz Price. Scott Kirshner is off this week. 419-794-3030 is the number. 419-794-3030. Online, arhq.com. A little earlier, we talked about the changes in I-bonds, the new rates as of this month, and a lot of changes have come through as of late. And we always talk about opportunities in times of financial turmoil and uncertainty. Thanks to inflation last year, I know it's tough to say, but thanks to inflation, those taking Social Security this year enjoyed an 8.7% COLA, or cost of living adjustment, to their monthly checks, the biggest raise in decades. Here's the downside to that, as inflation seems to be coming down a little bit. The latest projection is that the COLA for this coming year is going to be 3% or less in 2024, so not nearly as robust. If that turns out to be true, guys, how do you reevaluate a retirement plan and how that plays in?
Well, I think inflation is an important topic. It's a topic that we've talked about on this show for decades that I can think of. You know, if we looked at the numbers, inflation went to really zero, so it became a topic that most people didn't talk about. But when you look at inflation, I'd say for somebody that's close to or in retirement time, to me, inflation's been a real big deal for a long time, because if you add in things like, health insurance costs or energy costs or food and energy, those expenses have been a real big hit to retirees for quite some time, which is why it's so important when you're looking at, how Social Security will increase with inflation and factoring in what those numbers look like. I know through some of the planning software, we will run the analysis and take a look at if inflation stays high, what is the impact on that. But there's a couple of takeaways when we're looking at, will Social Security increase with inflation, and, what do you do to reevaluate your retirement plan? Is, first of all, review your retirement budget. Take a closer look at your expenses. Evaluate where are the areas maybe that you could cut back in some of your spending, prioritize those essential expenses such as housing, food, and healthcare, and make sure you have enough reliable, predictable income that is covering those expenses. Number two is assess your retirement income. So evaluate those sources of retirement income, including pensions, annuities, Social Security, or other sources. If your Social Security benefits won't increase, you may need to find ways to boost your other sources of income. It could be looking at, higher dividend-paying stocks. It could be things like, if you're not collecting Social Security yet, not being one of the roughly 70% of people who take Social Security benefits early and face a lifetime penalty. That, number three, could be the good option, which is, again, if you haven't taken it, maybe consider delaying taking your Social Security benefits. In fact, you could consider delaying retirement. I know I met with a gentleman earlier this week, and he says, you know what? I really kind of like what I do. No rush to retire. I plan on staying here for a couple more years. It gives me something fun to do. I get out of the house, and it works out really well. So if possible, delaying retirement can help build up additional retirement savings, help you increase your Social Security benefit, can give you more time to adjust your retirement plan and prepare for the unexpected expenses. And number four is maybe invest and adjust your investment strategy. So if you're relying on investment income to fund your retirement, consider adjusting that strategy to focus more on income-producing assets. That could be, now that bonds rates have gone up, reevaluating what your holdings are. It could be things like dividend-paying stocks or other income-generating investments. And, I'd always say seek the advice of a qualified professional, somebody like us or somebody who works in the retirement space. But Chaz, when you get that question and people want to know about Social Security and inflation, what is the answer that you're giving and telling people about reevaluating their retirement plan?
Yeah, Social Security has been a hot topic. We talk about it a lot, not necessarily in terms of the COLA, but I think people are concerned in general about the solvency of Social Security in general, and maybe not for our generation, but for future generations. Social Security might look very much different than what it is today. So that's one of the takeaways I think on Social Security is I think we need to fix the main issue, not necessarily worry so much about the cost of living. But I'm kind of torn a little bit. I feel as though, at least recently with inflation, a lot of the key metrics to inflation, one being housing and the other being wage growth, are generally pretty sticky items. Additionally, healthcare, I think, is also a pretty sticky issue when it comes to inflation, meaning they're not going down anytime soon. I don't think healthcare costs are going down. Generally, once your landlord sets your rent and takes it up 15 to 20%, it's probably not coming back down. And same with wages. I mean, when we see younger workers in the workforce getting 15, 16, 17 bucks an hour, that's going to be tough, for an employer to walk that back in the future. So I think inflation, at least in some areas of the economy, is going to be pretty sticky. I don't expect it to go back down right away. But on the reverse end of that, that's kind of what the goal is too. I mean, if inflation is going down, we shouldn't need the cost of living adjustment really to keep up with our style of living. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword. Yes, we appreciate getting the increase in our pensions and our Social Security checks, but do we really need it if inflation is kind of steady? The other point that I like that you made, Nolan, was about your investment philosophy and how your investments are doing relative to inflation. And I think one thing that investors typically overlook is not necessarily the dividend right now, but the growth of the dividend rate and the payout rate over the years. So, growth of the growth rate of your dividends can vary over time. It depends on, the economy and the market conditions and what sectors of the economy that you're in. But according to the S&P 500, some data that we analyze here, the annual compound growth rate of dividends for the S&P 500 was approximately 5.4% from 1926 to 2020. And during that same period of time, average inflation was only about 2.9%. So this suggests that on average, if you're investing in dividend-oriented companies, we call them blue chips, the companies that have strong financial backgrounds and financial strength. They pay steady dividends and in many cases increase their dividends. We call those the dividend aristocrats, and have very little debt. Generally, those companies are going to be able to outpace inflation and kind of keep up with it over the long term. So, again, dividends, it's important to know they're not guarantees. They can be cut, they can be suspended at any time during times of economic stress or market stress. But generally, based on historical precedent, a dividend-oriented strategy is usually a pretty good option for an investor to consider when and if they're worried about inflation outpacing their ability to generate income.
Yeah, so Chris, those are three topics right there that we're going to be talking about for our local residents. We'll be talking about, philosophies when it comes to investing, how to manage market volatility, generate income. We'll be talking about ways to optimize your Social Security benefits and, what the impact of inflation could be. That event, it's called our Retirement Playbook. Chaz and I are going to be doing that presentation May 15th and May 17th. And for our listeners here locally that want to sign up, it's arhq.com or americasretirementheadquarters.com. Click on the events tab, and we'd love to have you come out.
Again, if you've got the time, they'd love to have you out there May 15th, May 17th at the BGSU Levis Commons campus. Get more information, including how to reserve your seats and, start designing that retirement playbook, arhq.com.